Welcome to Midnight Menu Plus One. I'm Ray Canada.
And I'm Margot Moss. Midnight Menu Plus One is a food lifestyle show on the podcast network itsneworleans.com. Brought to us tonight by Petite Pet Care. While you're at work or on a vacation, you don't have to board your pet. He can stay in the comfort of his own home. For loving care when you're not there, Petite Pet Care. Find them at petitepetcare.com.
Each week on Midnight Menu Plus One, Margot and I invite a member of New Orleans restaurant and food community to join us, and we invite them to bring along their own guest, a plus one. We never know who the plus one's going to be. Sometimes it's a friend, a neighbor, a family member, a fellow restaurant colleague. Well, a special guest tonight on Midnight Menu Plus One, we're very excited to have with us Chef Harveen Khera of Hillel's Kitchen at Tulane's campus. But before she gets here, we wanted to talk a little bit with our new host, Chef Chappy. We're now taping at a Chappy's restaurant, and we're so grateful to be here with you. And how long have you been open, Chef?
2 weeks. We just finished in 2 weeks today.
All right. How's it going?
It's rolling.
All right.
We're cooking up a storm.
What's your favorite thing you make?
My favorite thing?
Your favorite
I'm a
dish.
seafood holic. So I love my fish. Fish. Speckled trout, redfish, tuna. I'm a fishaholic. So I can eat fish every day. And then I want a big, thick steak. When I'm fished out, big, thick steak. Lots of veggies. I love everything. That's my problem. I'm never going to be a skinny boy. I'm going to be fat. I've been fat my whole life, and it's never going to change. But I am down to a crisp 240. Very impressive. All my friends at Oshner will be very proud to hear that I'm down to 240.
Nice. Well, you should take a break once in a while and go to Hillel because they have some nice healthy meals over there we're going to hear about in just a moment. But yours are delicious. And they may not be dietetic, but...
what do you mean? Fish is about as healthy as it could be.
You're the one that said it, not me. I think fish is great. You're the one that said you were 240 from it. That's all.
Not from that. From everything else.
Okay. Well, listen, we're so grateful to be here. Tell us your address and your webpage and all the rest of it, any of the contact stuff, your hours.
6106 Magazine Street. We're open 7 nights a week, 5 to 10, and all day Sunday. We do a wonderful Sunday champagne brunch. So, and 3 courses, $15, plus, of course, the cost of champagne, which is $6.
All right.
Or a Bloody Mary.
That's a great deal.
Yeah, it is. And it's been very popular. This last Sunday, we really did really
awesome.
Happiness was in here.
All right. Well, yeah, I walk by here. I live right nearby, and I've been seeing the place filling up more and more. It seems every day. It's exciting to see it, and really appreciate it. Thank you.
Good.
All right. Well, we'll chat with you more, I'm sure, in the days ahead. But thanks so much for joining us.
I'm done? That's it?
You're it. That's it.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Shoot. I don't get to sing, dance, nothing. All right. Au revoir.
Thank you. Well, it looks like it's time for our special guest, Chef Khera. We're so glad to have you here.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes.
So, Chef, where are you from originally?
I'm from London. I was born and brought up in London. Yeah, in central London.
Okay. Yeah. And when did you come to the United States?
I was probably about 17. Yeah, and I decided I really didn't want anyone to tell me what to do, and I was going to try California, give it a stab.
So you ended up in San Francisco, right?
San Francisco, yes.
Right. And were you cooking right away when you got to San Francisco?
No, basically I was looking for any job I could get into, right? You're starting out on your own, and so I started out doing pizza. Was the very first thing I was doing at Round Table Pizza. Okay. And then I just got in with a bunch of foodies, a bunch of people that were in the food industry that were really into it. And I met, actually, one of the first chefs I worked with was Joey Altman. And he was phenomenal. And he made food so easy and approachable to work with. That was really inspiring to work with him. And he had learned most of his talent in San Francisco. So it seemed like the natural progression to move towards San Francisco.
Okay. So now, how'd you meet him? Was it through the pizza thing that you were doing?
No, I applied for a job at a place called the Palace in Sunnyvale.
Okay.
And he was a chef there. And so I interviewed with him, and he was passionate, and we got to like one another, and he offered me a job.
So did you go to culinary school, or did you just...
I did not.
It was all just hands-on?
Yeah, it was all hands-on, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and it's inspiring. That's what you do. You get motivated by a certain chef, and then someone teaches you a few more moves, and then someone teaches you a few more moves, and then you want to be challenged a little bit more and stay in the industry. So San Francisco was this really fantastic vortex of amazing chefs at that time, and still is. And so, one of the places that a lot of people aspire to work work at was Stars in San Francisco. And that's where I met Jeremiah Towers. And he was one of the forefathers of Chez Panisse. So he started out with Stars in San Francisco. And it was a phenomenal group of restaurant people working there at that time.
So what capacity were you when you were working there?
I worked in private dining. So I worked with setting up everything from the front of the house to the back of the house, working alongside a captain and a chef.
Okay. And so what did that look like? What were you doing? But you would set it up. Did you work with the clients as well, or did you just
No, I worked in a service position, so
Okay,
I would work
server.
as prepping first thing in the morning towards the event in the evening, and then we would go in and we'd set up the dining room. So you
Okay.
worked in that private dining room, you worked both sides of service, both front and back of the house in that very, very small room.
Okay.
And it was a really unique room. It had a cigar bar upstairs. It was probably seated about 40 people at most.
Nice, intimate, but probably a lot of great experiences.
Oh, phenomenal experiences, yeah.
And then what did you transition into after that?
Well, I was in San Francisco, so at that time it was a really exciting time to be there for me. I'd just gotten my foot, so to speak, in the door, and I met people that were starting to work in the Mission, starting to work downtown, and there were a lot of different avenues to go in. You could go stay in fine dining, or you could go into more of the casual feel of the city. At that time, the Mission hadn't even been developed, so there was this sort of quiet rumble in the Mission that was going on. Lower Fillmore hadn't really been developed at that time, so it was going through its own sort of rebirth, right? And then downtown, some of the for example, Nancy Oakes was opening Boulevard downtown, and she had been working, I would say, closer to Geary Street, closer towards the Sunset. So it was really nice to see people that had started really, really small, sort of expanding into working with people like Pat Coletto and opening their own venues. So I bounced around. That was a time for me where I really bounced around and I got to know the city. I also was one of those people that wanted to work, 2 or 3 jobs and have friends from different arenas around. So I worked at Bruno's. I opened Bruno's. I opened John Lee Hooker's Boom Boom Room. I worked at Boulevard. I worked at a place called Rendezvous du Monde at that time. And I just bounced around the city, and I worked at a bunch of different places. And then I opened my own bar after Foreign Cinema. I opened Delfina for Craig and Annie Stoll, and then, after that, Foreign Cinema, where I actually met Michael Hecht, which was kind of an interesting story that he then since then, he's moved to New Orleans, and he's the CEO of Juno Inc., which is just cool, you know?
Well, it's interesting. A lot of times, a lot of New Orleanians like me will say things like, well, if the place ever floods, can't live anywhere else. There's nowhere else I could be. And then people always answer, they would say San Francisco or Austin. Those are the 2 places that people always say. Right. And I think the reason why is because they perceive those places as being weird like New Orleans. I think the deeper reason is because they have like a local culture. It's still places to have a local culture. Like San Francisco is different than any place else, and Austin's a little different than anywhere else, and New Orleans, of course, is very different from anywhere else. So, so it has a strong culture. What's the difference between? What are some of the similarities or differences you see between the food industry or just culture in general in San Francisco versus New Orleans?
Well, I think, like you said, it's got that cult vibe to it. Similarities are, I would say, 20 years ago, New Orleans reminds me of San Francisco maybe 20 years ago, in the sense of it was a lot more free at the time. It was a lot cheaper. It was full of artists and musicians and people from all walks of life. So it's gotten really expensive.
Yeah.
That's kind of the tipping point.
And it gets more uptight as it gets more expensive, doesn't it?
Yeah, a friend of mine was actually, he lives on the top of Twin Peaks, and he was horrified to learn that that someone was going through his recycling, and and he actually got a ticket because he didn't compost some of his recycling. And
so the neighbors were digging through his recycling can and finding out that he wasn't keeping all the rules, huh?
Yeah.
And he got reported for that.
Yeah, it gets a bit crazy.
So that could be coming to New Orleans eventually.
No, I hope not. I hope not.
Man, that sounds horrible. Now, where's your accent from? You're obviously from. Okay, so you've been in some of the most interesting places in the world. So you grew up in London, then you were in San Francisco 20 years, and now you've been here a while. Where's your London accent is? What's your derivation there? Were you?
I was born and brought up in England. My mom is Indian.
She's Indian.
And,
okay.
My dad was Malaysian.
Malaysian. Okay. Oh wow. So you're half Malaysian and half Indian.
Right.
Raised in London.
Yeah. Just like the rest of my family. Yeah.
Oh, so interesting. Yeah.
Did your background influence your interest in food any?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think anyone that's in cooking is generally there because someone influenced them in a heavy way during their life. My grandmother was very influential for me. All my family members really growing up were excellent cooks. Yeah, I love it. I also grew up around a lot of Trinidadians, Tobagans, Russians, Polish people, Irish people, English people. So central London, especially at that time in the 70s, was a huge melting pot of different cultures coming together. And so you grow up with food that is what you assume as normal, but you know the difference between dasheen and okra and eggplant, and that's just the way you're raised. So for me, I got hit on all sides by it, but yeah, I love the medium, so to speak, because it's never ending. You never really know everything about it. It's always going to be interesting, and then your palate evolves. You learn something else, you taste something else, and it's sort of a never-ending feast.
All right, never-ending feast.
I want to get back up a little bit, and so you were working in San Francisco and met Michael, and. What else? How did you get to New Orleans from there? Was it Michael or was it?
It was love.
Love.
Yeah, my husband's from here.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. And we met in San Francisco. We met in San Francisco in our mid-20s, and I had, like I said, I was fairly young in the restaurant industry, and I had gotten a job at Boulevard working for Nancy. Now, Nancy was like, and still is Boulevard's the number one restaurant in San Francisco. Oh. So it was like going to the Mecca, right? And Wayne was sort of her golden boy. And
what was he doing there?
Oh, he was cooking there. He had come from Commander's Palace, then worked with Wolfgang in San Francisco, and then worked with Joyce Goldstein. And so he also wanted to work with, Nancy Oakes.
And you were working there as well?
I got a job working at the bar there.
Okay.
Yeah, so I came in on my first day, and then he just, wandered over, and it was, not appropriate, and so I was terrified I was going to get fired, and and Wayne wanted to tell me a joke.
All right.
Yeah.
What was it? Do you remember?
Yeah. It was terrible. It was why does 6 hate 7?
Why?
Because 7, 8, 9.
Oh my God!
Well, it's terrible, right? It's
wow,
really
that worked?
Yeah, it worked. Yeah.
Wow.
I especially worked on my nephew. I told him over the phone later on that evening, and he laughed. So I went, all right, maybe he's all right.
Wow, that's one of the worst pickup lines I've ever heard.
Terrible,
yeah. Wow. So how long before that till you were dating? Was that it? Next night?
It was for him. It took a little while. He got a haircut. He kept trying, kept going.
He got a haircut.
He also stalked me around.
Did you tell him you didn't like his hair?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
He just
he
got inspired.
He's Southern, He has to do it all up.
Nice.
So
now, what was your hair like back then?
Mine?
Yeah. What was your hair doing?
Did you have big hair?
I
Is
have
that
big
what you're
hair.
asking?
Yeah.
This would have been the 80s that we're talking about, or was it?
No,
okay.
this would
90s.
be 90s.
90s. Okay.
Yeah.
So your husband, did y'all stay in San Francisco, or did he? Did y'all go somewhere else?
We were on again, off again.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a rocky road to get here. Yeah, and he stalked me. He stalked me around.
He stalked you. What was that like? Any court orders involved, or
you see a skateboard, come by the corner. Oh, he was there. Oh no, he's gone. Or he would come in and sit at the end of the bar, but not say anything, and then go away. Yeah, this
that's on the creepy side. Yeah, because a skateboard's one of the noisier ways to stalk somebody. You can walk much more quietly if you won't want to be detected.
So did he stay in the food industry the whole?
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
on and off.
Yeah, no, he did. He was totally in it. He was totally in the industry. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Well, we're gonna get back to that because I want to hear exactly how y'all came to New Orleans and all. But we've come to the part of the show where your plus one joins us, and we'd like to know who this gentleman is and why you invited him on.
Well, this is Rabbi Yonah Schiller. And
welcome.
Hello.
And I have the pleasure of working with Rabbi Yonah Schiller every day at the Hillel building. We met through Michael, actually. And I had moved to New Orleans, and I wasn't really sure whether I was getting back into the food industry, what I was doing. And so Michael gave me a phone call one day, and he said, I have a friend who's a rabbi, and he needs some help. And Michael wasn't really quite sure what you needed, but he said something to do with cooking and something to do with the kitchen. And so I gave Yonah a ring, and we met. And we started talking about, we talked more philosophically, I think, about what we wanted to do. I'd say that.
Now, this is with the new Mintz Center that was being built, right? Center for Jewish Life on Tulane, and it hadn't been built yet. And you were you were in charge of the design of what was going to be in the center and how it was going to be structured and all that. Is that what I'm gathering?
Yeah, we were in the design phase, and we were thinking big picture conceptually. How do we want to roll this thing out? What do we want to create? Who do we want to be part of that creation? And food is important.
Right.
So when thinking about not only, oftentimes in certain Jewish institutions, you might think like, kosher food, get a kosher caterer, get somebody who knows kosher food. So from where we were coming from, we really wanted to create community. And everything we did wanted to be feeding into that community. Food was just one component in addition to programming, community relations, all the other pieces that might go into a community-oriented center. So when thinking about the food option, it was really philosophically speaking, when Harvey and I started talking, it was how can food play a role in creating community, and then the kosher piece of it again a little bit was secondary, although it was important, it was going to happen, but and Harvey can talk more about what kosher limitations might feel like. Oftentimes they're not as limited as people think. And part of the concept of the program was also redefine what kosher food can be imagined to be, and that's something that Harveen is hasn't said enough yet. She's a chef, but she's first and foremost, I would say she's an artist, and food is just her medium, and that's what we were looking for. We're looking to create something that was going to be surprising to us and a new offering to the community, and also in terms of the lexicon of what Jewish institutions can be.
So when you spoke to her, you were thinking about several people to be involved in this. Right away, did you go, this is the person to help us move forward with this? Or, what happened? How'd that develop?
Yeah, you can also speak to it. It was a process of really, I was looking for thought partners, and I was looking, rather forgetting the Jewish thing for a second, I was looking for people who really knew food. And Michael, has a vast amount of, restaurant experience in San Francisco. He said, you need to talk to Harveen. Harveen knows food better than anybody I know. And when we spoke, it was clear that was her world. And also how she imagined creating food was similar to how I imagined creating community, which was let's think about putting the raw elements together and see what happens.
Yeah, I would say the goal was to build community through food, and to evolve the building and build that community, and philosophically, Yonah and I just jived, and so for me it was, there's no holes barred, really. It's just understanding what kosher is, and most people focus on what you can't do rather than what you can do. And there's probably whole continents devoted to the same cultural mindset of kosher food.
Will you elaborate a little bit about that?
So, for example, most of Asia and going into Africa, there's very few, recipes that involve a dairy and a meat to mix. So it's really about looking at the structure of how of the content of kosher food, and then going along those lines. What we do at Hillel's Kitchen is we source our ingredients locally. We use everything that is seasonal. We strive to use everything that is organic, and we use a kosher product. For me, which means really a product that holds integrity. You can't butcher the animal unless 100% of the animal is 100% okay. For example, we've all gotten a chicken every once in a while where a wing is missing from it, and I always I laugh about that, and I go, well, maybe the wing was rotten, but the rest of the bird seemed fine, so that's why you got a chicken with one wing, or maybe it was just a one-armed chicken. I really don't know. But, for me, is as I get more aware of what I'm actually eating, as I watch far too many documentaries on Netflix, I have to take that into account and go, what am I also nurturing someone else with as a chef, and what am I putting into my own body as consumption?
Now, did you have any kosher background before this? So you're not Jewish, right?
No,
okay.
I'm not Jewish. I had no kosher background to it, and like I said,
and you hadn't worked in a kosher kitchen before or anything like that?
Not at all.
So there's a lot of studying involved, and a lot of research involved, and just sort of getting down the basics, even probably, right?
There was what happened was the process was a rather nice dance. So it wasn't let's open a restaurant in 6 weeks. It was a process of about 6 to 8 months, where I really got to know the philosophy of what we were striving for, the content of what we were doing. Also working with the students at Tulane, who really influenced what we're putting on a plate today, and just listening to them, understanding, hearing people's gripes, their complaints about.
So what is that
want.
philosophy? Like, you keep mentioning the philosophy of it. Like, you talked about community being essential to that. How would you summarize some of the
philosophies
contours of the philosophy?
Right, is to bring the fringe together and let everybody celebrate within an open community of people that are like-minded and want to celebrate life. If you want to bring together the community through food, if you want to be around a source that uses local products, seasonal products, organic products, kosher elements to it, I think all of those start building a community of people. If you want to work closer to farmers in your community, if you want to know who the butcher is that actually slaughtered the meat that you have, you're building that through community. Right. I think those are essential keys of what we do. Also putting something on a plate that gets you really close to excellent food. I've been privileged to work in very high-end fine dining, very simple dining. The thing that separates the two or makes the two equal is when you use an excellent product, and if you can, get rid of the bells and whistles. Because for the restaurateurs that spend a lot of money on their linens, their flowers, their maitre d's, it's lovely, it's a wonderful experience. Not all of us have 2 hours for lunch or dinner anymore. We have a very short amount of time. That doesn't mean that we want to eat crap during that period of time. We want to really, for me at least, I want to get as close to good food as possible during that period of time. So one of the ways to do it is if you are supported by, the Hillel Foundation, if Tulane takes an interest in you and you are doing an excellent thing and striving for an excellent product, it's really nice to have such excellent cheerleaders behind what we're doing, really, because they're great partners for us. We started, Hillel's Kitchen started as a small husband and wife business, and we started feeding 15 students, and then within a few short weeks we were feeding 150, 200 people.
I get so many questions, so I'm sorry if I keep cutting you off, but I'm dying to get to a whole bunch of these. Okay, so one of them is, like, what percentage of the diners now are students or people that are part of the Tulane community, academically or whatever, students, faculty, staff, and what percentage are just people in the neighborhood? I've eaten there a dozen times or so. I'm not affiliated with Tulane. How many folks are like me? It's probably hard to tell sometimes, but
we recognize a lot of people, surprisingly, and I would say that. Yonah knows the metrics much better than I would, but I would say about 90% of who walk in are students or faculty or involved with Tulane.
Right.
I would say that we have a growing population of outside of that community, neighbors growing.
Right.
We have been fortunate enough to be invited to, the local farmers market. So we've made more friends.
Right.
We're now actually in the last couple of weeks just got on Good Eggs, which
Right.
we're thrilled
That's
to be
great.
part of.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
really is. And what we've learned is that there's, people know a lot more about us than we ever thought before.
Right.
Because we're really quite busy on Good Eggs.
Now the prices are the price point is really good, I think, for the quality of the ingredients you use and everything. I mean, it really is. It's a solid value. Is it subsidized, or is that just really good management? I mean, do you have some sort of grant that's offsetting the cost a little bit, or is it just I mean, is it making money? Is the kitchen?
Well, we've been there 4 years. We're yet to turn a profit.
Okay.
The wonderful thing about working with Yonah and his team is that they book a ton of events, right? Without the support from the Hillel Foundation, we really wouldn't be standing as a business. So it really takes everyone
So you
supporting
also
the business.
cater those things and
We
all
do,
that, right?
yeah.
Okay.
We support Shabbat dinners. We do private events. We're about to do.
Hey, do you work with the
schmancy.
synagogues then too? Is that the idea? You're catering at synagogue events too, or no?
We do Shabbat dinner. We
okay.
do the Rosh Hashanah dinners. We do Passover.
Okay.
dinner.
Oh, so not just
Yeah.
for the Hillel, but I mean always at the Hillel though, right? Not
at the Hillel. Yeah.
Okay.
But you've catered for other synagogues in town.
Yeah, I have.
Yes,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
that's what I meant.
yeah, we
Okay.
have, yeah.
So
Cool. Now-
what
now
is
how-
the
go ahead.
event? So what is schmancy? That's
Okay.
really funny name. I mean, I love it. And,
No, I mean,
what
it's
is that?
it's just and one thing I just want to add, just because I think it's just important. One thing in terms of the philosophy, which we talk a lot about, and is it's also about the basis of community. I think is really bringing together different people's perspectives and people feeling like they have a belonging.
Right.
And I think in terms of when we were getting oriented with the food operation, it was also really about making it. I would stop short of saying it was customized food, but it was personal. I've on numerous and countless occasions every day I hear Harveen giving health advice to people who are there to order something, and that's I feel like that's very important to Harveen. It's important to building community because people don't feel like they're walking in and just ordering something off the menu. It's also about where am I at today? How can what's the food I need today? And then Harveen and her staff playing a role in that. So I think that's also sort of like part of the building of the community piece.
Well, I mean, that's sort of a very spiritual theological value too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's the Hebrew scriptures in agreement with the New Testament too. Treat food as more than just fuel, and more than just an aesthetic thing.
Ideally,
it's sort of a
it's supposed
holistic thing, right?
Ideally, it's supposed to raise consciousness. We should be aware of what we're doing, whether it be
Right.
eating or walking or whatever.
I always tell people when you if you grew up Southern Baptist or you grew up Orthodox Jewish or you grew up something where you're learning the Bible stories and you ask somebody to walk their way through Genesis 1 and keep going as far as they can go, they got to get about halfway through Exodus before they hit a story where food's not the middle of the story. It's in the middle of every single story.
The Garden of Eden, it starts with food, right?
Yeah, it starts out. I mean, the whole fall starts with the forbidden fruit,
right.
and then it's Cain and Abel over the meat offering versus the grain
right.
offering. And it keeps going and going and going.
Right.
And every story centers on food.
Yeah.
And I think there's something there to say this is something that's primal about us. It's not just sort of something that's something that we as a developed nation and middle class people can have the luxury of being able to have these exotic foods and try all this different stuff. It's about a lot more than that, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, and it's interesting is that food also is very connected to identity and what kind of
Yes.
food you eat, but also what kind of food you serve. So going back to Schmancy, it's a great segue just because Schmancy is our community-wide event that we are launching on November 20th, and it's our first Hillel community-wide fundraiser that we've done alone. We've often partnered with other organizations, and we're really excited about this. So Schmancy is a funny word, I don't know.
Did you coin that?
No, we have an amazing committee of people.
Your committee coined that, though?
I think they did. Yes.
Okay, nice.
I think it's been used before, though.
It's gonna.
But,
Okay, I was gonna say that.
but I don't know if
added to the dictionary.
I don't know if
it's
it's been
not.
used
Okay.
as a fundraiser name. So but more than it's more than the fundraiser. It's also a way of people being exposed to the community that we're building and also be a part of the community. So one of the things that Schmancy is about is really about bringing people together, both showing what we're doing and also collecting seemingly disparate people in the community in one place and at one time. So Schmancy is centered around food. We have we're honoring a number of people that night. One of the persons that we're honoring is Dr. Sarah Mack, and she's winning the Big Pastrami Award. There is a pastrami theme, and Harveen could talk more about the food that's going to be served there. But the idea is to make it schmancy. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a little bit crazy, a little bit fancy, and really kind of highlight all of the stuff that we do. We're very community organized. And,
so you're selling tickets to this?
We're selling tickets. They're $99 a ticket.
All right.
And it's going to be the Messy Cookers are going to be playing there, the jazz band, Messy Cooker Jazz Band. There's going to be signature drinks, martinis, Manhattans, beer, wine. The food is going to be modern schmancy twist on deli foods. mini pastrami sandwiches, chicken liver crostinis, smoked fish. And Harveen, you can, if you want to say anything else about the menu that we've talked about a little bit.
And all that's included in your $99, huh?
Yeah.
Open bar too?
Yeah, it's martinis and Manhattans.
You'll lose money on Margot if you do that.
Margot can come after the party. So no, it's gonna be really great. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and that's the name of the game, to make it fun.
Yeah, it's gonna have this great, sort of 1920s feel to it. It's gonna have interesting allures that I can't really go into. Some of them have to be kept top secret.
Yeah,
there are some surprises, huh?
Yeah,
oh, nice.
yeah.
Absolutely.
But we're going to do our version of Angels on Horseback, which is, I get this fantastic hot dog from New York, from Abel and Heyman, and then we're going to wrap it in pastrami, and we're going to throw it on the grill. So that's going to be one of them. We're going to do knishes, so a really flaky pastry with stuffed potato, and it has schmaltz in it. And
there'll be kosher gumbo, I've heard.
Kosher gumbo.
Kosher gumbo.
Wayne makes the best turkey gumbo. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Oh, of course,
yeah.
turkey. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And we're going to do sliders. We're going to be doing cones of smoked white fish, and we're going to we'll have a ladka bar, which will have freshly made ladkas with our house smoked salmon on them. We'll also have pulled beef that we do on the ladkas, which is delicious.
And as a ramp up, you all should know that we are actually taking orders now up until the event on June 20th for pastrami sandwiches.
Right.
And they're a fundraiser mechanism. They're $20 sandwiches. $10 goes to Hillel, and $10 is for the food itself. Nice. And we're selling those in individual sandwiches and also in platters. So if you have a business lunch out there and you want to sample what could be an amazing night not to be forgotten between now and November 20th, you can order that. You can just go straight to the Tulane Hillel website, which is tulanehillel.org, and there'll be a link there to order those sandwiches.
Now, do you know of any other Hillel place? Almost every campus probably has, of size, has a Hillel in an urban area, you know. Do you know any other one that has a kitchen that's this sophisticated or this interesting? Because I'm going to tell you this. Growing up in New York and all that, right, lots and lots of kosher restaurants, and I love to eat, and partly Jewish family and all that stuff. Kosher restaurants were not my go-to usually. You know what I mean? It was usually not the place that you went for the delicious food. Yeah. But I've loved everything I've ever had at your all's place. And I'm just wondering, is this a trend? Are there a lot of Hillels that are coming up with really creative kitchens, or are you pioneers in that? You think?
I think we are pioneers in that. There is a renewed interest in people expecting quality from their Jewish experience, and I think kosher food is no exception. And oftentimes, like you said, it's not often associated with quality food, and that's definitely something we want to turn around.
Well, everybody knows that Jews have been like leaders in the arts, in like every kind of art, in visual arts and in literature and in film and all that kind of stuff. Disproportionate, leadership in that. And I've often wondered why not quite as much. It seems like. I mean, I know there's lots of great Jewish chefs, but not. I don't know. You don't think of a lot of Jewish kosher chefs or whatever, and it just seems odd to me. And maybe it's because it grew out of a lot of times out of maybe a culture of scarcity sometimes in food and so forth, and you could read and you could debate philosophically, but you couldn't really get a hold of lots of varied ingredients when you were in the shtetl, or and maybe it's part of, I don't know what the answer to that is. Have you thought about that, or you have any opinions on that?
I think there's a reemergence of what kosher food can look like and be reimagined, and I think there are some restaurants that are popping up in New York. There are some now kosher food trucks that are popping up with quality food in New York and Brooklyn area. But in general, I think we're at the beginning of something that I think we're going to see more I think it's just in general the world's becoming more diversified, more unique authenticity people are looking for. So I think you're going to see more kosher food options that are probably on par with other quality.
Now, how
stuff.
kosher are you? Like, I know there's grades, right? I mean, for example, my favorite cousin in my family is very particular. Although I was talking to Grant before, and I found out there's more particular people than him. He's Orthodox, so he's got the 2 refrigerators and 2 stoves and all that, and and we always let him pick where we're going to eat whenever, and he brings stuff usually and all that. But I found that there's kosher places near me that he wouldn't go to because they weren't the right rabbi that had overseen it and this and that. And there was debate in New York about when they discovered there was tiny crustaceans in the water.
Yeah,
that's right. And was that a violation? And then there were some people who said, well, if you could see them with 20/20 vision, then they're crustaceans. If you can't, then And there was debate. It was split even within Orthodox folks about what was. So I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is like, where do you draw the line with y'all? Do you decide that? I guess as a committee has decided that.
Yeah. So,
and where is that line roughly in ways that our listeners can understand?
Yeah. So there's a technical answer, and first of all, we're supervised by the Rabbi Beth Israel in Metairie, which is an Orthodox synagogue. And more sort of in terms of the narrative, I've supervised a number of different kosher kitchens, and I can speak about some of the nuances of what makes something kosher and not kosher. But what's interesting is I've brought Orthodox colleagues into our kitchen, and one thing that they've always said, which is they're kind of amazed, basically, and it's because that oftentimes a lot of the process of keeping kosher in a restaurant is checking out the products to make sure that they have a kosher symbol. There's very few things that Harveen and her staff don't make from scratch. So really, other than the meat, the restaurant it's like one of the simplest kosher kitchens ever to be maintained because everything she does is from scratch, and oftentimes raw ingredients are already kosher. It's only when you get into processed foods where you run into a lot of.
Okay.
So it's very interesting. The meat
machinery is mixing ingredients that's not supposed to be mixed in the factory. So
yes,
if you're doing it yourself, then you're not mixing them. Okay, that's interesting.
So in that sense, it's a very streamlined, very simple kosher operation, and it adheres to the highest guidelines in terms of kashrut. Obviously, the average goer food consumer would never know that, but it's a very strictly kosher situation.
Yeah. So do you have any Orthodox folks in town that don't think you're Orthodox enough they can't eat it in your kitchen?
Probably.
Probably.
I mean,
there's always got to be somebody against you. Or you're probably not doing. You're probably not doing the same. You're probably not doing something right if nobody's against you. So
right.
No comment.
Well, I mean, we all have. I mean, my church, like we're heretics to some people. Whatever. So I mean, it's okay. That's all right.
So, Rabbi, where would you only eat in your home before this kitchen was open, or what was your dining experience?
This is
like
all
in New Orleans?
a selfish ploy.
Yeah, you just created this kitchen so you have a place to eat.
He does.
We do eat there quite often.
What percentage of meals do you eat there?
I've been trying to cut down my. It's like it's not good for
90%, 80%. You're up there probably, I bet.
I've been taking it. I don't know if Harveen's noticed. I've taken a different tack. Like I now get like the banana bread, which is like out of this world, and I get like maybe 2 pieces a day, and I space it out, and then I treat myself to lunch every other day, kind of thing.
Comes in and he just hovers and sees if we're going to chuck some food at him. Oh, are you trying something? What's going on? He'll just walk into the kitchen.
Yeah, but this is the only kosher restaurant in New Orleans.
Wow.
Yeah.
In the whole metro area or in the city?
There are kosher restaurants in Metairie, but in the city, in New Orleans, is the only kosher restaurant.
Okay, so I heard a rumor, and so this was probably true. I heard a rumor that, there was one point in time where I could say I ate at every single restaurant in the city.
Yeah.
I heard a rumor that you've eaten in none of the restaurants in the city except for this one. Is that true?
You and I are the inverse of each other. Yeah. And there is a kosher waffle place that just opened up. Just correct.
Where?
Kosher waffle place.
Where?
That place that you
ate.
on
Maple. I love that place. Yeah, they were closed for the holidays recently too. Okay.
Hold
so they are
kosher
kosher waffle place.
Yeah, they're kosher. They're kosher.
Oh.
Yeah, and that's just I haven't eaten there yet. So shame on me, right?
What would be unkosher in a waffle? Let's see. I guess if you had, there's milk products probably in a waffle, right? And then if you had some kind of
cheese can be an issue.
Right.
Anything processed. Anything processed.
Because waffles are like all processed. It's like flour. And
and
like
they can be kosher waffles, but there can be kosher waffles that have no supervision whatsoever. So oftentimes you'll find when you go into one of these factories is they'll oftentimes process multiple different types of foods using the same machines.
Right.
And so
now, probably 80-90% of our listeners don't understand the issue with cheese. Like, there's this issue of not being able to mix milk products with meat products, right? Explain to us that. It's very basic.
You're basically there's a basic principle that you're not supposed to mix meat and milk together. So you'll never find a kosher restaurant that will serve milk products and meat products.
Right.
It'll choose one or the other. Or it'll be what they call parv, which is something that has neither meat nor milk. So like seed, for example, is like, has no meat, no milk on that menu. That would be a parv restaurant.
So my favorite deli in Jersey used to I couldn't get cheese on my sandwiches with meat, but they would give it on the side, and then I could put it on myself. Was that fudging? Was God mad at them?
I don't know who God's mad at.
But it would be on the plate, right? And then cleaning the plate.
Mine would get wrapped up. The sandwich would get wrapped up, be fully wrapped, and then fully wrapped separate from that would be my cheese.
Yeah, sometimes establishments have different areas of their establishment that do just
one
milk
cutter
over
that's
there,
only done cheese
over
and
there.
never touched meat, and one that's only done meat and never touched cheese. And,
Exactly.
Well, I had a relative that used to. Well, okay, I didn't know him. He died before I was born. But the family story was he used to bring his own pots and pans with him to restaurants, and he'd give it to him, and they'd say, okay, cook it in this, and he'd have it marked,
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a common thing or not. That was just him. But
I have a famous story. My grandmother, because she was coming to our house, she kept a stricter kosher standard than we did at our family. And she was living in New York. We were living in Boston. And she came over, and because of her kosher guidelines, she brought with her for Thanksgiving her carving knife, and she brought it on the plane. And of course, before she got on the plane, a 70-year-old woman was takes out a carving knife from her bag, and it was a little bit of an incident. She had to explain in a heavy accent that she keeps it kosher.
Okay, I have one more question about food and kosher. Do you have to wait in between a certain amount of time if you eat meat and then you have dairy? Is there like a...
Can it mix in your stomach?
Yeah, strictly speaking, you're supposed to separate them into technically different meals. So there are different technical Jewish law versions of what the amount of time constitutes a separate meal. So like if you think about it for yourself, like you have a meal, when are you ready for another meal?
Right.
I don't know, what like a couple hours later, 5 hours later, sometimes 6 hours later. So there are actually different versions of how many hours you're supposed to wait based on where you're from. For example, if you're Dutch, you only have to wait 1 hour. If you're from Eastern Europe, you wait for 6 hours. If you're from
because they're more dark and morbid. They
never ate there.
So, Harveen, will you share some of the food from your menu, and how often do you change up the menu to suit your creativity? And
I try to change. I try to change the menu or influence the menu on a daily basis. Add something to it on a daily. Like for example, right now we're featuring local Louisiana satsumas, and we're doing that not only in a bowl on the counter, but we're also using it as a vinaigrette. So we like to incorporate things on that level. Right now we're in pastrami zone, so we are. It's a 2-week process, so we've been curing it, dry rubbing it, massaging it, smoking it. We're about to steam it tomorrow, so wish us luck with that. But really, it's as much as we work with a very large student population now in our kitchen, which is really kind of amazing,
Working in the kitchen.
Yeah, working.
Yeah, so they're
kitchen,
learning. They're learning
and
not only cooking techniques, but really special cooking techniques too. Yeah, right.
Right. It's definitely going to be unique for them. It's something that I'd like to venture into more of a curriculum for Tulane down the road. But right now, what happens is the reaction to the students learning. So we all kind of get on one page, and then we start talking about food. We go to the farmer's market. We come to my house. We look at what's growing in the garden. We start talking, and it's conversation. So right now, everyone wants to do noodles, and everyone wants to do ramen noodles. So next week, we'll start going into the ramen noodles. So, it changes based on what's modern, what's contemporary right now, you know, and it's influenced by what we know and miss on the streets that we can't get here all the time. You know, we do things as classic as a shawarma, you know, and we do a veggie burger, you know, so we do a fantastic veggie burger. That's made with spinach and black beans, and we smoke our sweet potatoes in there. So I wanted a substantial veggie burger, but not something that was loaded with, you know, carbs on top of a bun. It doesn't really make any sense to me. So I wanted something that was substantial in there, but delicious, you know. And then we make a Moroccan tomato jam that we load the sandwich with. We do. I do a turkey breast sous vide. So I take the turkey. You know, I get my turkeys in. We use whole animal farming. So we break down the entire animal. So the students get to really know how to break down a whole fish. What do we do with all parts of the fish? How do we break down the belly? What are we doing with, how are we smoking it? How are we curing it? They go from nose to tail on any animal. With the turkeys, we're breaking those down. So we take the breasts off, and then I marinate them and I sous vide them. So I'm cooking them at low boiling temperature for a long period of time, which really doesn't dry out the turkey breast in any way. So when people are getting an $8 sandwich across the counter from us, the bread's been made in-house and it's all organic. The turkey breast is organic and it's cooked sous vide. It's slapped on there with a handful of microgreens, some local baby greens, a Creole tomato, and some ripe avocado.
Yeah, that's how I understand how you do that. I mean, it's really that's a lot of expense that goes in all that.
It is a lot
and
for
a lot
effort,
of manpower too.
Yeah.
I mean, I just paid $13 for my sandwich on Sunday for lunch. It was delicious, but it wasn't as complicated as what you just described for $8. And it just surprises me that you can give such a great value for such fantastic food.
Yeah, well, once again, I think it's what you can do with kosher as opposed to what you can't do with it. And so I can, use all my knowledge and apply it to very simple street food and go, it's an excellent product. And we're getting you as close to great food as possible at a really affordable price.
Now, you have any related? Go ahead.
And I was just going to say that is, to me, another great example of community, because not only the students are coming there and people can eat together, but you're educating them on amazing food, and it's something they can grow with you and learn, and then when they leave, they will spread that, so it makes the community expand.
Yeah, I think.
It's
Yeah,
just
I mean, I went to an elite college where probably right now in the cafeteria, the students are unpacking Cisco boxes, and sticking things into toaster ovens, whatever it is, a microwave, and pressing codes, and that's
right.
That's so different than the experience that you're describing.
When I came to the college campus, I was horrified at what they were eating, and I went, well, if you're at Tulane and your education level is on a high ground and your expectation is really high for these students to then get out in the real world and be able to communicate, one of the ways that we do communicate is through food, and so for me, I felt compelled to say, this is an excellent product, learn about it, learn about its history, and then take it further in your life and be able to expand upon it, because we're an ever-changing world today. We need to know a little bit about everyone's food, I mean, San Francisco, for me, is a land of burritos on your way to work. So I had to have a burrito on the menu. You know what I mean? Like when I was in the service industry, going from one job to another, you grab a burrito on Mission Street and you keep going. And for me, when I think about casual fast, that's the kind of thing that really appeals to me. Like something that's totally solid, you can go all day on. It doesn't cost you an arm and a leg. But yeah, you have to make the effort of going there. You have to make the effort of getting to know the people that work there, and it makes for a good community-based environment.
Now, do you have any relationship with Chef Leah Saris? We just saw her this week. She got the she got one. She was named one of the 40 under 40 by Gambit Weekly. She's been on our show a few times. She's got the first teaching kitchen in a medical school in the country, a Tulane Medical School.
Right, yeah. I met her briefly.
Yeah, it sounds like she'd be really interested in what you're doing. You two would kindred spirits, yeah. It'd be interesting to see if there's any way you could partner up with her. Maybe you could teach some segments of her class on some of these cooking adventures that you're having.
Have them come over.
Yeah. Or get students over.
Well, y'all, we're coming to the end of the show.
This.
I know I'm so sad. There's so much
Our
more
producer
to
was
learn
signaling us,
about
and I
y'all.
thought he was saying it's time for the special segment, which is like halfway through, and it's like, no, we're done. Oh.
Should we spring this?
No,
you don't want
I had a good question but
Oh,
I'm
come
not.
on. You don't want to do it? We have the part of the show where we ask y'all a question that you would not be asked in any reputable restaurant or in any job interview. A quirky question.
All right.
From off the menu. So
mine's going to get we get people in trouble sometimes with these questions, but you got to answer them anyway. But you just blame it on us. But okay, this is one of those quandaries I think that maybe not. You're probably used to this. All right, I'm probably not the first one to think of this. Okay, so God comes to you in a vision and says you can eat one food that's not kosher one time before you die.
Oh my God!
What are you going to eat?
Wow.
Crawfish. No.
So first of all, I have to just say, November 20th. Schmancy, you have to come. Seriously, it'd be a great way to be introduced to
Get
Harveen
fancy, get
and
schmancy.
what's going on.
We're going to
here.
give you a chance to do a plug at the
Okay,
end.
good,
Don't
good,
worry
good.
about it.
So
Everybody's got something to plug.
Beyond a doubt, beyond a doubt, it would be oysters.
Oysters. So you've never had an oyster.
No, I have had oysters.
You have had oysters before.
When
Okay,
when I was younger, prior to
getting a little more observant.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you're craving them ever since.
I don't crave them, but when I see them, I'm just like, I remember those.
Why is God so mean?
wow, that's really not. I would not have.
Really?
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, oysters and just at a bar was all I needed. Really,
Okay.
it's all I needed. Rather.
All right.
Yeah.
That's a great
Been
answer.
a long time
Yeah.
though. Been a long time.
Okay.
Well, Harveen, my question for you is absolutely not that challenging. But let's see if you were to if you had to choose another career.
Right.
Somebody God came to you and told you you could not be a chef anymore. What would your other career be?
I'd be a farmer.
A farmer.
Ah.
Okay.
Now, is that the same answer you would have given 20 years ago if we had asked that, or 10 years ago? Has your experience at Hillel changed that significantly, or would you have said the same thing 10 years ago?
I don't know. I was wild. I was still wild, actually. I don't know. Yeah, maybe I would. I don't know what I was.
Were you a punk rocker in London? And
I was wild, man.
Did
I
you
was
see the
young
Clash?
punk.
You see Sex Pistols?
No,
No?
Americans like that, but you know,
I'm jealous.
we like
I
soul.
got
We
to
like
see the Ramones.
We like
That was
Earth,
it.
Wind, and Fire.
All right.
We're in that genre. No, I don't think so. I can't imagine what. 10 years ago, I would have probably said I will trot the globe. But that was, before Wayne stalked me around, dragged me to the bayou.
Nice.
And you've become a bayou girl. All right.
All right. Well, we're completely out of time. Now, give that plug, Yonah, about one more time for Schmancy.
Yeah, I mean, really, I'm only telling you because I would like to meet you. It's November 20th at the Hillel Center. It's 912 Broadway for $99 a ticket. Live music by the Messy Cookers Jazz Band, delicious food, signature cocktails, amazing people and community, martinis, Manhattans, modern schmancy twist of deli foods, mini pastrami sandwiches, chicken liver crostinis, and smoked fish, and much, much more. It should be zany, crazy, fun, fancy, and a lot of fun.
And you told them where they can get the tickets?
Yeah, tickets are on, you can order them on Tulane Hillel website, which is tulanehillel.org. And you can also order any amount of pastrami sandwiches from now leading up there. It's great for business lunch, $20 a sandwich, special deals for a platter. Take advantage of it. It's really going to be, as you can heard from Harveen, everything is homemade, including the pastrami. So
wow. Amazing. Yum. All right, our special guest tonight on Midnight Menu Plus One was Chef Harveen Khera, and her Plus One was Rabbi Yonah Schiller. You can find out more about Hillel's Kitchen and about the rest of the goings-on of the Mintz Center for Jewish Life by following the links on our website, itsneworleans.com.
And thanks tonight to Petite Pet Care for loving care when you're out trying the incredible food that Harveen and her husband are working on at the Hillel Center. You can contact petitepetcare.com.
All right, and thanks also to Chappy's, our new host. That's it for tonight's show. So till next time, I'm Ray Canada.
And I'm Margot Moss.
Good night. Midnight Menu Plus One is produced by Margot Moss, Grant Morris, and me, Ray Canada. Our technical director is Chris Keogh.
You can find photos from tonight's show on our website, itsneworleans.com, On itsneworleans.com, you can also check out our blog. You can listen to lots more episodes of Midnight Menu Plus One and our other shows, including Out to Lunch, Happy Hour, True to the Game, and Mindset.
You can hook up with me and Margot anytime by following Midnight Menu Plus One on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can also Google Midnight Menu Plus One, and we come right up.
The fabulous audio quality of this show is brought to us by PreSonus Audio. For more information about PreSonus recording equipment, go to presonus.com.
Midnight Menu Plus One is a production of INO Broadcasting for itsneworleans.com. For all of us here at Midnight Menu Plus One, thanks for joining us. I'm Ray Canada.
And I'm Margot Moss. We look forward to seeing you back here next week on Midnight Menu Plus One.
You know Labor Day signals the unofficial end of summer, but not the end of your outdoor projects. Lowe's helps you do it right and helps you save with Labor Day deals throughout the store. Shop now and get 2 bags of Stay Green potty mix for $12. And keep your lawn looking neat and trim with a Craftsman 2-cycle 17-inch gas string trimmer, now $20 off at just $119. Whatever's still on your to-do list this Labor Day, do it right for less. Start with Lowe's. Offers valid through 8/28. Soil offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii, U.S. only.